Hi, this is Jeff Lesher with What's the Point? And the point this week is actually kind of the point, or where the point comes from. And when we get the foundational cornerstone wrong on which we base our assumption, our belief, make a decision, and communicate, when that's not right, we can be way wrong. And this happens all the time. One of the most recent examples, you may have heard about this, if not, look it up. Scott Adams, the creator of the very popular, long-standing cartoon strip, kind of a commentary on the workplace, Dilbert, on his own, Scott Adams, not Dilbert, on his own podcast, so I don't think he's going to claim he was taken out of context, made remarks that certainly can be interpreted as being racist. And as a consequence, hundreds of newspapers have dropped this cartoon strip. What Adams seems to have based his rant on is essentially a trolling study that's been out in the mainstream for years, provoking sentiment that separates white from black. Now, I'm not here to comment on the poll. I'm not here to comment on Scott Adams' tolerance or lack thereof. But what I am commenting on, and what I want to encourage all of us to be particularly mindful of, is before you run down the road of the ladder of inference, something I've talked about before, Chris Argyris's model for how bias influences how we see something around us, the belief that we draw from it or assumption that we make, the decision that we can arrive at, and the action that we take as a consequence, that when we get that first piece wrong, because we don't investigate it more fully than, here's what I thought I saw, here's what I think it means, I'm just going to run off and go do something about it as a consequence, we can do great harm to ourselves and others, because that, even if it's just a little bit off at the beginning, by the time you get to the end, you're way off. And we do that over and over. We see one thing in one place, we assign truth to it, we draw meaning from it, and we take action as a result. So you better make darn sure that what you think you are seeing is right. And one of the easiest, best ways to go about that is to ask a freaking question of the person about whom you're making an assumption, if it's that personal, and it very often is, or at minimum, do a little bit of research. Find another place where there's commentary about a study, for example, or about a circumstance, for example. And there's so many examples of this. I could go on, and I choose not to here. I just ask you, don't trust the facts on their face. Trust but verify. Then go down the path, hopefully in a more collaborative, cooperative way, and determine together with whatever audience that is, one person or many, what makes the most sense to go do based on the reality or mutually agreed to circumstance versus one person's version of the truth through a very narrow and often limiting lens that can lead us into big trouble, like having your comic strip removed from hundreds of papers because you ran off, as my mom would say, half-cocked. That's not a good idea. Being fully cocked, if you will, would be a better idea, and that's the point.